All right, so I got a little bit of breaking news here for you guys as President Joe Biden continues to be absolutely dog-walked by the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, who is basically going to come out here and destroy the notion, as Joe Biden has been claiming recently, that a two-state solution is a viable option in terms of a path forward from here. And not only is he going to admit that he's firmly against a two-state solution and giving Palestinians any sort of real, autonomy or sovereignty, but he's going to use a familiar phrase here that we've heard a lot over the last couple of months that has been demonized whenever pro-Palestinian people use it, and we'll see what the outcome is now that Bibi himself has used pretty much these exact same words. So let's go ahead and listen to this real quick.
Yes, I am very consistent, and I'm saying something very simple. This conflict is not on the lack of a state of Palestinian, but the existence of a state, the Jewish state. Every area that we evacuate, we receive terrible terror against that. It happened in South Lebanon, in Gaza, and also Judea and Samaria, which we did it. And therefore, I clarify that in any other arrangement, in the future, the state of Israel have to control on the entire area from the river to the sea. This is what happens when you have sovereignty. This truth I say to our American friends. And I also stopped the attempt to impose on us a reality that will jeopardize us. A prime minister in Israel has to be able to say no, even to the best of friends. To say no when you need to, and to say yes when you can.
Okay, so just spitting in the face of the statements that Joe Biden has made over the last couple of months, right? Oh, well, we need to just take care of Hamas. We're going to support Israel in that effort, and then we're going to move, forward with some sort of a two-state solution. So, couple of different things here. First off, as I've laid out from my personal opinion, now granted, I think whatever solution to this conflict that is reached in the future, I think that should be determined by the Palestinian people. My view on the conflict is that the idea of a two-state solution is virtually impossible at this point. You have hundreds of thousands of Israeli settlers that have illegally moved into Palestinian land in the West Bank specifically, right? And so you've carved out all of these different portions that have been taken over and directly occupied by the government of Israel, by illegal Israeli settlers that conduct terrorism against Palestinians in the West Bank. And so creating a contiguous Palestinian state with the fragmented West Bank and the Gaza Strip isolated in a geographically separate area, to me, that doesn't make any sense. I'm in favor of a one-state solution with full democratic and civil rights for all people in the region. So going back to the phrase, right? From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. This is a phrase that got Rashida Tlaib, the only Palestinian American representative in the entirety of the House of Representatives. This got her censured for using that kind of rhetoric, okay? Because in the minds of many pro-Israel people, anti-Palestinian people in our government and in our country, they think that means she's calling for genocide. She's calling for the genocide of the Jewish people, right? Which is, number one, utter and complete bullshit. The actual meaning of that is, again, she wants full freedom and democratic rights for Palestinians who are not granted those things at the moment. They are living under apartheid and occupation and an ongoing ethnic cleansing and now a genocidal campaign inside of Gaza. So that's what it means when most pro-Palestinian people that I've talked to, certainly that's what it means when I use that phrase. It means full democratic and civil rights for Palestinians, right? For everybody living in this region. Okay, an end to the apartheid, the occupation, etc., etc. That's what that means when Rashida Tlaib uses it. When Benjamin Netanyahu uses that phrase, okay, keeping in mind that it got Rashida Tlaib censured for saying that, for calling for Palestinian rights. When Benjamin Netanyahu uses that phrase, what does he mean by that? What does he mean when he says, from the river to the sea, Israel will effectively be in control of this entire area, everything to the west of Jordan? What does he mean by that? I think we know what he means. He means an expansion of the occupation, an expansion of the apartheid, an expansion of the ethnic cleansing, and total Israeli control under what he is perpetuating, a Jewish supremacist, a Jewish ethno-state kind of project. That's what he means by that. So we censure the only Palestinian member of the House of Representatives when she says that in the opposite direction. What do we do when Benjamin Netanyahu says that with the intentions that we know that he's actually putting out there? We send him more weapons. I mean, it's not surprising, right? You can look at all of his previous past statements, the statements from members within his coalition, the statements from other representatives of the Israeli government and military. It's been very clear exactly what their goals have been for a very long time now. This is why, especially under Benjamin Netanyahu's government, but even before that, we've seen such a dramatic rise in the expansion of the completely illegal settlements inside of the West Bank. It's why we see guys like Itamar Ben-Gvir, the Minister of National Security, going and handing out weapons to those settlers to go terrorize Palestinians with and to extend their project there, right? It's also why we see, guys like Benjamin Netanyahu throughout his recent history, his recent political career, propping up Hamas, right? I mean, that's something we discussed a lot towards the beginning of this most recent campaign inside of Gaza since October 7th. He directly admitted this. We have the quotes, we have the statements. Benjamin Netanyahu propped up Hamas, aided in funding Hamas, and keeping them in a position of power. Why? Because he could use them as a cudgel against the Palestinian statehood project, right? He could prevent the establishment of a unified Palestinian state by dividing the West Bank under Palestinian authority and the Gaza Strip under Hamas authority. That was his entire goal, right? So he even went so far as to support the people who he's now saying are the equivalent to the Nazis combined with ISIS, right? He supported them in the past and helped to keep them in a position of power, specifically to prevent a Palestinian state. So nobody should be surprised that this is the kind of rhetoric that he's using. But it is helpful for him to literally use that phrasing from the river to the sea and just scream the quiet part out loud and admit to everybody and to spit in the eye of Joe Biden, who continues to say, oh no, we're working towards a Palestinian state. Don't worry, it's not an ethnic cleansing, it's not an apartheid, it's not an occupation. It's a valid military campaign that is really, at the end of the day, working for the Palestinian people. This is in their best interest too. And then Netanyahu comes out and says things like this, right? In the future, the state of Israel has to control the entire area, from the river to the sea. We also had some more updates here from Itamar Ben-Gvir, absolute psychopath within the Benjamin Netanyahu coalition and government. The Minister of National Security said in an interview with Israel's Channel 12 on Wednesday that he believes Israel needs to occupy Gaza and stay there, and that they would develop a plan of encouragement to make Palestinians leave. A plan of encouragement, guys. It's not forced, violent ethnic cleansing under the threat of bombs dropping on your head or sniper bullets targeting your family members. No, it's a plan of encouragement. Just happens to be an encouragement, through violent military force. I mean, obviously the euphemisms here are very obvious, very absurd at face value, right? And this is something that we've seen from other Israeli representatives as well. They talk about this in such glib ways. They talk about this in such casual ways. Well, what if there is a plan to, allow the Palestinians to flee? It's really a humanitarian project, right? We're being such good humanitarians by allowing the Palestinians to flee the bombs that we're sending, right? I mean, that's the idea here. And I mean, this kind of rhetoric tagged in with previous rhetoric we've seen from guys like Benjamin Netanyahu or Benjamin Netanyahu or Itamar Ben-Gvir or Smotrich or Isaac Herzog or the rest of these guys, Yoav Gallant, tied in with all of the rest of the rhetoric about resettling the Gaza Strip and let's move them to the Sinai Peninsula, or maybe there are other countries that would accept them, right? I mean, it gives away the game. So when we talk about the genocide case at the ICJ, this is why, these kinds of statements are important. This is why so many of those statements from government officials, from top leaders within Israel, were brought up so much as a part of South Africa's case at the International Court of Justice. It's because this is like the rarest, moment in history where a country is committing a genocide. They are engaging in a genocidal campaign, and they're making the hardest part about proving that, usually the intent aspect of it, they're making that incredibly easy because they just say it over and over and over again. No, we want to expel the Palestinians from Gaza. right? That's why we have destroyed the entirety of the northern portion of Gaza and large portions of the south of Gaza. That's why we are, targeting what they call power targets, in other words, civilians and civilian infrastructure, to try to apply pressure on them. That's why we hear other representatives of the Israeli government coming out and openly saying we are using food and medicine and water as a weapon, as a tool of war, to apply pressure on the Palestinian people. I mean, they openly say all of this shit, right? So it's not a difficult case to make. Meanwhile, as I covered a couple of days ago, yesterday, the U.S. Senate blocked a resolution from Bernie Sanders not to hold Israel accountable, not to end weapons shipments to Israel, not to prosecute any of these people, but to look into, to get an official State Department report on whether or not Israel is violating human rights law. So our Senate cannot even examine, they refuse to even look at whether or not Israel is in violation of international law or human rights law. As we get more and more genocidal statements, more and more genocidal actions from the government, the military apparatus of Israel, every single goddamn day. Every single day. And they refuse to look at it for a simple reason, which is that they know the answer, they know the outcome, which is that Israel obviously is not following in accordance with international law or human rights laws. Of course they're not. And if they're not, and we verify that in a domestic sense, well then guess what? It's a violation of the Leahy Act, for example. It's a violation of U.S. law to send weapons to a country that is violating those laws. It's that simple. And so they just refuse to look at it. Israel gets a complete exemption, okay, even relative to other very close allies to the United States. We treat Israel like it's the United States. We give them complete and utter immunity. There is no scrutiny whatsoever. There are no questions that are asked. Anything they want, we give them. Why do we do this? Why do we do any of this? I mean, seriously, look at the destruction. This is just a couple of videos over the last couple of days. Why do we support this? Why do we support the flattening of entire neighborhoods within inside Gaza, entire regions inside of Gaza? These were all homes at one point. These were all places where families, where human beings lived, had entire lives set up, flattened to the ground. Why do we support this? Another university building. This is a controlled demolition. Controlled demolition. This was the last standing major university inside of Gaza. A controlled demolition. Was this for military purposes? This is a targeted hunt for Hamas. You had time to go into the university, set up the explosives, rig them, back it off, get a drone shot around the entire building, and then blow it up. For a military purpose. We're supposed to believe that. We're supposed to believe that this is not part of a mass ethnic cleansing. It's not part of a genocidal campaign. It's not an attempt to destroy the Palestinian people, the Palestinian will, Palestinian culture, the future for Palestinians who want to grow up and to go to universities and to study things and become doctors and engineers and lawyers and all of the rest of that. We're supposed to believe this is a targeted military campaign against Hamas. How absurd. I mean, adding on to that, the internet outages recently. So we're getting even less information than we otherwise could out of Gaza. But why do we support this? I mean, the answer to me is pretty clear. We give this deference to Israel. We give this unquestioned support to Israel because the United States government, the United States military, views Israel as the 51st state, but more importantly, they view them as basically a giant aircraft carrier that is totally unsinkable, a giant military base for the projection of American power inside of a region that is geopolitically important for the United States to maintain our global empire. That's the reason at the end of the day. And so we are willing to overlook, to look the other way, to give cover for openly genocidal acts and openly genocidal statements for that reason, to continue in this project. This is the American government for you.